Are you concerned about all this corruption being rebranded as conspiracy theory? Well, don't you worry. Sit back and relax and join in the conversation with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
Hello and welcome to the channel. It's me, Chris Brooks, for another LSB Film Podcast. I hope everyone's keeping well. Today's guest is a little bit special because we're always talking about wanting to stop paying council tax and looking at different ways and means in order to do that. But we don't really hear of many success stories in the fact that people have managed to do it. And so today, my guest is Reginald Austin, and Reginald is going to tell us about his journey into the system, and I'm looking forward to this one. So welcome to the show.
Well, thanks very much for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, pleasure is all mine. So what was the initial part that made you think, you know what, I'm not paying this anymore?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I've always thought, who would hate to tell you what to do? So I've never really been for taking orders off people. I walked out of school when I was 8 or 9 years old because they were teaching us in history, because I'd learned things from my granddad about history, about the war and stuff. And one day in the lesson, they were teaching us something, and I put my hand up and I said, "Sir, that's not right, Dad." And he went, "Why is that, Austin? Explain." So I explained to him what my granddad was telling me. And you know what he turned around and said? "Oh, your granddad's correct, Austin," he said, "but we're not learning that today." So I thought, why are we learning something that's not true? And that's when I just went off school then, and I stopped going. They sent me to court. They sent me mum to court. They sent me to child psychologists, and they had to do reports on me and all that. Well, the child psychologist turned around and made a report saying that Reginald's a very exceptionally intelligent child, very, very stubborn, and we don't blame his mother. He seems to have his own mind, and there's no way to change that, basically, is what he said.
So that's incredible. Sorry for butting in, but that's incredible. And I wanted to butt in there because if that was today, they would be looking at any ways possible to try and fit you up as looking a bit loony or cuckoo.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a big change from that point. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So anyway, I stopped going to school. I wouldn't go. What they done, they basically couldn't blame me mum. Said the psychologist said, "We can't blame his mum. Basically, it's down to him. You need to persuade him. He wants to go to school because he's not going to change his mind, basically." So I stopped going, and I never done nothing after that. And so I never went to school. I wasn't educated in school. I couldn't read and write properly until I was in my 20s. See, my first wife, her name was Chris with a K, the same as yours, Christina. And she was a teacher. She was a qualified teacher, and she taught me the basics of English and mathematics and stuff. And then I started reading. When I learned to read, I started reading all kinds of books and stuff, and about grammar, about the law, history, and that's where it went from there. So I've never been one to believe that anyone's got any authority over you. So I started looking into how did he get this authority? And then I realised, this authority is all through contracts. So if I haven't agreed to a contract with all the terms and conditions in that contract, it doesn't apply to me. I've got no obligation. So I stopped paying their council tax and stuff like that. I refused to get a driving licence until I was about 36 when I got a driving licence, and I was driving from the age of 13, 14. I had my first car when I was about 14, 13.
Bloody hell.
And I went to jail 5 times for driving without the documents and stuff like that.
See, now I didn't realise that was a jailable offence.
Yeah, well, it was. Do you know, I used to get fined all the time for driving without insurance, driving without tax and licence and stuff. So I challenged it, and I said, well, where's the obligation to pay, to get with DVLA to do as what they say, to follow their directives or their legislation or policies. Where's the contract? Show me the contract and I'll comply. He says, no one can force me. No one's got authority over me. without my signature on a piece of paper with what I'm agreeing to in the terms and conditions and whoever I'm agreeing with. And without that, there's no obligation. So I stopped paying council tax must have been about between 12 and 15 years ago. And I got the bill up to it was just under £15,000, he said I owed them. This was 4 years ago. So I joined Peacekeepers. Have you heard of Peacekeepers?
Yeah, I've heard of. I've met one of
Brian
them. Brian is the one that I've met.
Yeah. Well, I've met Mark and Brian, and I joined Peacekeepers, and I learned a lot about the contracts and the obligation. So this is about 4 years ago. So I've done all the paperwork, done the affidavit, and I sent it into the council, asking for the obligation, where the contract is, with the terms and conditions, what created the claimed obligation. If you can present that, I'll gladly pay everything what I owe to the council tax, which was nearly £15,000. And I knew for a fact they haven't got one. So I wasn't worried about that. So anyway, they left me alone.
For how long? Oh, okay. Yeah.
I never heard back from them. No reply, no response. They didn't rebut my affidavit. So I accepted that. 2 years later, I get, this is 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, I get another letter from the council tax, a bill, or whatever you want to call it. It's not a bill, is it? And it was only 2,000 something. So the £15,000 disappeared. So I thought, I must be right. So I just ignored that one for a while. And then I got another couple of letters off them to go to court over it, which I sent into the obligation again. Show me the obligation, and I'll do it. Just ignored it basically after that. Got no responses, and now the recent council tax bill I've got has gone down to 1,200 and something. So that 2,000 something went down as well. So, and it must be 2 years. It must be the 2 years. If you work it out, I don't know how much council tax is, but it must be around about £1,000-ish a year.
Yeah, I think we pay. Sorry, I say we. I think the wife pays. I think it's about £1,200 where I am.
A year.
Now Norfolk, and the Brookland area, is apparently renowned for being like one of the lower council tax rates. So that's not a fair representation as to what it would be in other parts of the country.
Yeah, I haven't got a clue, mate. I haven't really looked into how much it is, but I worked it out. If it was like £3,000 2 years ago, and then it drops down to 1,000, so basically half that, isn't it? So it must be.
They're clearly just trying to say, "Oh, we'll make them pay less just so we can get something back." I guess that's
I think what they're trying to do, they're trying to get me to agree to sign something so that they've got authority. Then see, I don't sign nothing. I tell everyone, don't ever sign nothing unless you read everything what you're signing for.
And it's not even a signature, is it? It's an autograph you give.
Yeah. Well, it's a sign of nature, and it's a sign that, see, only a man can pick a pen up and write. So that's what a signature is. It's a sign that a natural man is given authority. That's what a signature means. So DVLA, I've never read in the terms and conditions when I registered my car or applied for a license and stuff like that. You don't get the full terms and conditions. And also legislation. See, if legislation had any authority, it needs your signature to agree to it, explicit consent. So the only way they can get explicit consent to legislation is to give you a contract. You can imagine how big that'll be with all the legislation in it, with you signing it and whoever you're agreeing with. Well, UK government it's not a natural, can't hold a pen. So how can you make an agreement? And that's why they created the legal fiction, isn't it? Because you're representing the legal fiction, and you believe that that's you, and it's not you. The name isn't you, doesn't belong to you. It even says on the document, Crown copyright cannot be used to identify you. So when the police ask for the name and the date of birth, you give them that name and date of birth, assuming it's you. So then you're using Crown property, and then you can be charged for using their property.
This is why it's so clever, and this is what I learned with David James, who I desperately want to get back on the show, but he's been going through a bit of trouble in his personal. But he was saying, like, and that is that is bang on. It's the case that they're so devious and clever that they actually get you to commit the crime. They get
Yeah.
you to commit the fraud by using your driving license, your passport, your
Well,
birth certificate, because they're all fraudulent
yeah.
documents.
You've only got to look at what is a charge? When you get charged for doing something, there's no victim and you're being charged. Well, what is the definition of a charge? It's a payment for something in return, isn't it? What are you getting in return for that charge?
Less money.
Say you're speeding and you get charged for speeding on the road. What are you getting in return? Well, do you know what you're getting in return for that charge, don't you?
Well, they would say you're getting, you're paying to not be prosecuted.
No, well, yeah, but that's what I think, right? If you're getting charged, you're getting something in return. What are you getting in return? Well, what I think it is, the name and the date of birth is Crown copyright protected. It's owned by somebody else, the Crown Corporation. So you're using their property. So you can be charged for using somebody else's property. It's like renting something, isn't it? You get charged. I think that's what it is. But, that's my assumption of it.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, you're using
I can see the logic there.
Yeah, they've got a legal and lawful right to charge you for using that property. And I think the property is the Crown copyright name and date of birth. And you haven't asked to use it. You assume it's yours.
Yeah.
It's not, it's theirs. So you're using it. You're renting that and you're being charged. When you break one of their policies or their rules, they can charge you, but they're not charging you for breaking the rule, basically. They're charging you for using that name.
Yeah, that's it. See, I've registered my full name, how you would see it on your bills and stuff, your driving license, as a dormant limited company. So now whenever they write to me, they're writing to a company, not me. So
yeah. Well, you assume that the name, you assume when somebody says, who are you? And you say, I'm that name. You're claiming that name. You're using that name. It's not yours. It doesn't belong to you. So that's how they charge it. And that's what I think. And by going into these courts, but they're not courts anymore. We haven't got no courts of justice in this country anymore. They're all administering that trust. Because that trust, what happens when your parents register a child, they're not registering a child, they're registering a name. Because you register, as you know, if you register something, you're giving the ownership and control away, aren't you?
Yep.
So because you give that name to them, they control that name, they own it, basically. So they all capitalise it, turn it into a trust, and they float it on the stock market, which generates loads of money. So that trust, which you're the beneficiary of, which they don't tell you, which is supposed to pay for everything.
That's what your national insurance number is. Your national insurance number is your Swiss bank account.
And something to do with the birth certificate number on that as well. That's something to do with a treasury account, isn't it?
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I don't know the ins and outs, but I know that they're linked.
Well, there's people I've read and watched videos. There's a woman I was watching a video, can't remember her name. She reckons that it's worth at least £1 billion your trust account.
I would say easily, yeah. Yeah,
so,
this is where the terminology "worth your weight in gold" came from.
Yeah, well, when you go to court, these administrators, and you're asked, do you plead guilty or not guilty? Do you know what they're actually saying?
No,
they're not actually saying, have you done the crime or have you not done the crime? What they're saying, because guilty comes from the word guild. So basically, they're asking, are you going to pay or are you not going to pay? And that's basically what it is when you go to add. Are you going to pay from the trust, maybe, or are you going to pay from your pocket, or are you not going to pay? And that's what they do in these administrations. Every time, this woman reckons that every time they go somebody goes into court, they can access your trust because you sign with the papers with the solicitor, and by signing with the solicitor, you don't understand. You're giving your power of attorney to the solicitor.
Yeah.
So basically, you're incompetent to act on your behalf. So they act on your behalf. They go behind your back in these courts, in these administrations, and they sign on your behalf, your power of attorney to access that trust as the beneficiary, and that's how they get the money from it, or the equity from it.
It's so clever how they've done this, it's you've got to give them their hats off, and you've got to say, all right, you got us,
Well, it
but
goes
we
all the
need
way
to
back.
change it. It's got to
Yeah,
change.
it goes
Now,
all the way back to Roman times, doesn't it? So they've had
yeah,
enough time to work things out, haven't they?
exactly. So going back to your non-payment of council tax, then people are going to be asking in the comment section, do you own your own house?
I do.
You do.
Yeah,
Okay. Mortgage paid?
all paid.
Okay, so that's good. See, I'll
But basically, the house was bought cash, so there wasn't never a mortgage on it.
okay, that's always a nice position to be in. I only took my mortgage out in 2020.
Yeah.
You know.
So they can't touch me. And you know what is what else I've done? See, my son, he was driving with no documents, and they rammed him off the road. He wrecked his Jag, and this is a week before that. They arrested him sitting in a private car park on a private property, in the rear of a private property with railings around it, basically off the road. And he was sitting there because he didn't want to smoke in the house with the kids. He was having a spliff outside in the car, and he had a glass of Southern Comfort in the car. He wasn't driving; he was on private property.
Yeah, just sat there using it as a seat.
Yeah. Somebody phoned the police. The police said somebody phoned him. Someone acting suspicious sitting in the car. So the police come into the car park and they arrested him for driving under the influence. And
with the keys,
no insurance. Yeah, no insurance, no tax, and all that. They nicked him. They locked him up. And when he was in there, he's learned from me never to sign nothing, never to agree to nothing, and tell him you don't consent to legislation. And he had an affidavit, what was all done properly. It's all correct. I've had judges looking at my affidavit, and even he couldn't find a fault with it. So it was all correct. And he presented it to them. The police have still got the affidavit. They wouldn't give him it back. And he got charged with the motoring offences. Well, what happened? On the day he was charged, they let him out. They bailed him with basically no further action. I've got the charge sheet because I FOI'd all the paperwork, the case from the file and all that. And I was reading through it. And they even admit that he was on private property in a car park.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you charge him for a motoring offence on a private car park? Because once you're on and I was arguing with the police about it.
Did he have his keys in the ignition?
No, they were out of the ignition. But with the
okay.
Jag, they don't need to be in the ignition or something. The police were saying, that's not. It's irrelevant, isn't it, when he's on private land? If you're on private land,
if
you're on a farm, you can drive a tractor, a car, a van, anything on private land. You don't need documents. You don't need insurance, license. Doesn't need to be taxed. Everyone knows that. So I'm arguing with the copper through my window. I don't know if you've seen the video I sent you, but I'm arguing with the copper because I'm arguing with the case that he was on private land. He should never have been charged. If I jump back a bit, what happened? They released him with no charges. I've got the original charges sheet with a cross in it where it says insufficient evidence to prospect a guilty plea. So they never charged him, and they released him. But after they released him, they've gone behind his back and charged him and give a court date without notifying him of it. So he didn't know about it. He doesn't turn up to court. So that's why the police were all at my house to arrest him, because he never turned up to court when he wasn't even notified of the court case. When he was released, and I've got the paperwork there, it says on it, no further action because of lack of evidence to charge him. And they just ignore that, even though I've got one of their documents saying insufficient evidence for charging him. They come to my house to arrest him for not turning up to court. What they've done that behind his back after they released him. They've told him, you can go. No charges.
Well, surely
they forwarded the charges and created the court case. And because he wasn't notified of it, he never turned up, and then they come to arrest him.
Surely that's fraudulent, and surely you can now sue.
Yeah. Well, you've seen the video. They were all outside my house, the police. And I was explaining, the copper saying, well, he was right. I said, no, he was on private property. The Road Traffic Act doesn't apply on private property. And he said, well, it was public accessible. I said, yeah. I said, but my path's publicly accessible. I said, if my cow's in my driveway, right, it doesn't need tax and insurance. Even if you're sitting in it, even if it's running, It's not on a public highway, so you don't need it. It doesn't come under the legislation. But he wouldn't have it with me. He was saying, no, it's public access. I said, yeah, but public access doesn't mean it's access to private property. Public can be access to private property. It doesn't mean that private property is public property. It's not on the highway. Even though it's got public access, it's still private. Because you can walk onto farmland, private land, and it's not part of the highway code. It doesn't come under the Road Traffic Act.
Is that like things like Pedder's Way, where you've got the public footpaths that...
Yeah, public right of way through farmland. Because the public's got a right to enter private land. That's why they got the public right of way. See, like the copper was saying to me, well, I said, well, if that car is in a private property, it doesn't come under legislation. It's in private property. It's like, do you know what proves that? Do you know if you've got a car and you've got no tax, you can't say you can't afford the tax and insurance. So what you do, you sawn it off-road. And it's got to be off-road on your driveway. So while it's on your driveway, it doesn't need to be taxed. And that's why you're sawn off-road. So if you're sawn a car off-road and it's in your drive, it doesn't come under the highway.
But it does have to be sawn, though, doesn't it? You can't have a car on your driveway.
But who says that, Chris?
I'm pretty sure that's what they say.
Who said, that's DVLA policy, yeah?
But we don't work. But we don't work for them, do we?
No, well, listen as well, right? DVLA, right, is a private company on Companies House. Everyone knows that now. It's a private company for profit, right? They've got no authority to force their policy on anybody unless they've agreed to it. And what they're saying is because you've applied for a license and this thing, you come under their policy. But I have never signed a contract with full terms and conditions. Basically, all the acts and statutes of the Road Traffic Act should be there for you to read and sign and agree to. I've never done that. So none of their agreements and obligations to the Road Traffic Act or the DVLA, none of them are genuine. They're not enforceable because you wasn't given full terms and conditions of actually what you're agreeing to, was you?
No. Much like something else in 2020.
When you fill in, see, the way it works, you know about the MCO document, yeah?
I have heard of it, but you can remind me of its...
The manufacturer's certificate of origin.
Right, yeah.
When you create something, whoever creates it owns it. So the manufacturers who make the cars, they have to create a certificate when they pass it on they sell it to the dealer, or when they give it to the dealer. They've got this manufacturer's certificate origin to show that they own that property until somebody pays for it and buys it. And then they're supposed to give them that as proof of ownership. But what the DVLA does, right, when you go and buy a new car, you go to the dealer, you go and pay them the money, sign all the paperwork, and you guarantee it. They say, well, we'll get your car, we're going to clean it up, we'll valet it, we'll do this and that. You can pick it up in a couple of days. In that couple of days, they send that MCO document to the DVLA because they need that to register that car as theirs. So they register the property, the automobile, as theirs, and then they send the V5 back to the dealer. Then when you go to pick your car up with the dealer, he gets you to sign that V5. So then you're registering yourself as keeping the car for the DVLA. You don't own it.
No, you're registered keeper.
Yeah, it's so devious and deceitful. It's all fraud. Because when you sign no DVLA document, the V5 says on it that by registering it as the keeper, you don't own the car, you're keeping it for them. And part of their policy is if you're keeping their property, you've got to look after it, you've got to tax it, you've got to insure it in case it gets damaged, and you need a license to use it in commerce. And that's what it's all about. They don't tell you this. So you're not fully informed correctly of what you're doing. So it should be all void. The whole system should be void through fraud and deception.
So what's your situation with the DVLA and your driving at the moment? Because I know you said you didn't get your driving license until later on in life.
Yeah.
But are you insured, taxed?
No, what happened, right? I passed my test because I was sick and getting fined. I was sick and going to jail for fines. And when I challenged about the fines, I started putting paperwork in, and then they abolished going, people, you can't go to jail for the debt. And I think I had something to do with that, with the paperwork and the affidavits I was sending in. So shortly after, you stop putting you away for fines. But I was getting harassed by the police. I couldn't go out in my car. They were taking my cars off me, or they took so many cars off me and crushed them. So I started learning about the law, and then I realised then, you've got no obligation. That's when I learned that, without your signature on a piece of paper, a contract with them terms and conditions of what you're agreeing to and whoever you're agreeing to, it needs two signatures, and it needs terms and conditions fully informed of what you're agreeing to. Otherwise, the contract's void. It needs two signatures. The DVLA documents, what you sign, they haven't got. I'm thinking, but they haven't got two signatures. But if you notice what the police do, when they say to your solicitors, they put a cross and they say sign there. Do you know that cross is a mark?
That cross is their signature. I was gonna damn you. I was gonna bring this up earlier when you were talking about the banks, and they say, yeah, when they sign there. Yeah. That is their signature.
That's when I realised, where's these contracts with the two signatures? And then when I learned that cross is the other signature. See how crafty they are? They're so crafty. I've been studying the law for at least 10 years, if not longer. And I think I understand or comprehend how the law works, how the legal system works, contract law, equity law. I know how it all works now. And once it clicks into place and you think, no, you've never, ever given them consent. We're governed and policed by consent. I've never, ever given them consent. I've acquiesced, and I know they can claim acquiescence as consent. But people don't even realise because they're not taught about the law. And if people learn the law and they learn how bad the system is, if they can learn the law, people are taught, the kids are taught, you go to school, which is loose, spelled backwards, which means child abuse, abuse of a child. That's what it means, school.
Wow.
So you get words, they turn them around so you don't...
It's like everything is inverted in this world, everything.
Yeah, they flip everything around backwards. And they're all, the whole system is corrupt. And once you know how things should work, that they don't teach you that, you make sure they don't tell you that. Because if people knew how things work, they'd be straight away to go, yeah, this is all wrong, this is all deceit and fraud. So what it does, going back to where we were, when I was 36, I was sick of getting my cars took off me and stuff like that, because all that started in the 90s when they started taking people's cars off them, didn't they? Before that, they just give you a ticket and I just throw it in the bin. Do you know what I mean? Until they come and arrested me and they drag me to court, I'd get a fine and I'd just throw that in the bin. So I just took no notice of them. And they realised, there's nothing they can do to you. If you know the law and you challenge them, because if you don't challenge them, you're accepting it. So people need to learn the rights and the law. And legislation's not law. And the police really believe that legislation can be forced on people. And it can't.
So how do you live now then?
Well, I rescinded my licence. I got banned again 2 years ago. The police stitched me up. They done me for driving under the influence. I've had up to 30 years, no claims insurance, continuous insurance for about 30 years since I was 34, 36 when I finally got a licence. I've only been banned once in that time for driving under the influence, which I'll hold my hands up to. I had a few pints. I wasn't drunk. I was in full control of myself. I've never had an accident. What's been my fault in all the 40 odd years I've been driving, 50 odd years since I was 9. I'm 60 odd now, you know what I mean? So I was driving when I was a kid, underage. But since I got my license 30 odd years ago, I only have one insurance claim. What wasn't my fault? Somebody went into the back of me. So when this ban was up and I got insured, my insurance was usually about £500-700 a year because of all my no claims. So I got insured, and I was getting.
What the hell are you driving? My insurance is only around about 230 quid.
I drive a Range Rover Sport.
That could be why then.
Yeah, but anyway, where was I up to?
You were talking about once you got your license back.
Oh yeah, got my license back, got insured, done all the what you do, done all the paperwork, got my license, got insured, taxed the car, MOT, and I went by the rules for 30 odd years until I got pulled by the police for DUI. This was 4 or 5 years ago now. I got pulled by the police, and what they'd done, my passenger, one of my sons, I've got 8 sons, mate, and one of my sons, yeah, and 2 girls. One of my sons, 4 of them are adopted, and 4 of them are my own. One of my sons, his girlfriend was in my passenger seat, and I was giving her a lift to look at some flats. She was looking for a flat. So I gave her a lift to go look for a flat. Got pulled by the police. They pulled me because of what I was doing. They don't like me. So first thing they do, they pulled me over, and I'm straight in handcuffs. Dragged out the car, and in the car, didn't even ask who I was. Didn't ask. I'm like, what's going on? Shut up. Handcuffs in the back of the car. Right, Reg. They knew who I was. What are you playing at? I said, what do you mean? I said, they searched the car. They were looking for drugs, I think. Searched the car, searched me, searched the girl who was in the passenger seat, and she had a little bag of cannabis in her pocket. So after searching her, I'm handcuffed in the back of the police car, away from her. He comes over and he goes to me, what's this, Reg? And I went, looks like cannabis. Why? What are you asking me for? And he said, you been smoking this? I said, no, where'd you get that from? He said, I've took it off your passenger. I said, well, it's nothing to do with me, mate. I haven't been smoking that, no. So he said, well, you don't mind giving us a swab then, do you? So I thought, well, I haven't been smoking it. So, yeah, fair enough. I'll give you the swab to prove I haven't been smoking it.
And bang, so there's your consent.
Listen to this, though, right? Yeah. So I'm handcuffed in the back of the car. He gets his test kit out. He opens it up. It's in a plastic seal bag. He opens it up, takes the swab out, rubs it round my mouth, like that, as they do. I don't know if you've had one. Rubs it round, gets some saliva, and he put it on this plastic thing, a test thing. So he gets it on there. Well, I'd already read all the policy and all the procedures of the police, and because I read it over and over and over inside out. So what's he done? He gets that, and he puts it on top of the police car. So straight away, and people don't know this, they take it out your sight. That's void straight away. So I point this out to him. I goes, I wait for a minute. It's on top of the car. You got to wait so long for it to react, yeah? And it's got to be in your sight. So I wait for a second or two, and then I go to him, where's that test? To the copper. And he goes, it's on top of the car there. And I said, let's have a look. So I went to have a look like that, and he pushed me back in the police car. I said, stay where you are, you. So as I was pushed back in the police car, I noticed on the other side of the police car, there's a copper leaning over the roof from the other side. So he's got hold of this thing, I assume, and he's the copper who's got this bag of cannabis. So he's got the test thing and a bag of cannabis while I'm sitting handcuffed in the car. So I pointed out to him, you know that's void now, don't you? And he went, what do you mean? I said, well, you've took it out of my sight, and he's got cannabis on him. He's just showed me. So anyway, they arrested me. They kept me in all night. Went to court the next day. But in court, the prosecution was asked to expose the evidence by the judge, the magistrate. So the prosecution turned around and said, listen to this. Your Honour, we haven't got no evidence. What we had a positive test, saliva test, what indicated positive, but we had to void it because it was incorrectly done. Now, to say that in court, that's perjury. They can't, that's contempt of court. They can't say something like, if that's inadmissible evidence, they shouldn't even mention it.
No.
So I don't know, what is that perjury?
I don't know. It doesn't seem right though.
It's not right. You can't mention something if
because you're planting a seed, regardless of whether it's right or not. You're putting that image into the minds of whoever's.
But they're saying they had a positive test. They didn't say that we had cannabis in our possession and we took it out of his sight. They didn't say none of that. You know what I mean? Mm. They just said we had a positive test, but we had to void it because it was incorrectly done. So I said, I object to that. You shouldn't mention that. It's inadmissible. The judge said, shut up, Reginald, and sit down. So I couldn't even question one. Anyway, they dragged me back out, took me out.
Did you represent yourself?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
So I presented myself into the court. I didn't represent myself.
Yes, sorry, presented yourself.
That's presenting the name as you,
Yes.
as you know. So anyway, I objected to that. So I was told to shut up, Mr. Austin, which I told him, I'm not Mr. Austin. My name's Reginald. I'm the living man. I told him all this. I handed me affidavit, which the judge had a look at. The magistrate looked at, put it back, and handed it back to me. Just ignored it. And, you know, that's what you're up against. You just ignore it. But another court case I was up for, I sent my paperwork to the CPS, to the courts, and to everybody, every relevant man or woman. I sent it to them. And when I was I was in court, the judge, I didn't know he was a judge at the time. I took 15 witnesses with me as a jury. I had loads of people. Mark Holm was there. A few people. He'll tell you about it. The judge pulled me to the side before we went into court. Said, Reginald. And I said, yeah, that's me. He said, can we have a chat? So I said, yeah. Who are you like? He said, I'm going to be sitting on your case. So I said, okay, yeah, what do you want to chat about? He said, I've read your paperwork. He said, it's very thorough. He said, it's all correct. He said, what I'm going to do to you, with you, he said, I'm going to make you an offer. So I said, okay, you judge, what's that? He said, well, the least we can give in a magistrate's court is £30 fine. That's the very least we can give. He said, so if you'll agree to accept the £30 fine, he said, what I'll do, I'll squash, because I was under a suspended sentence. I was on a 2-year suspended sentence. Which I had my bags packed and everything ready to go to jail because I thought they'd just railroad me, as they normally do. But I've never put all my paperwork in like I did thoroughly this time. And he called me aside and he said, you accept this £30 fine and I'll squash. I had about £5,000 accumulated in most of the fines, which I've never paid. He promised I'll squash all them. I'll squash the suspended sentence. He said, forget about them. I'll squash them. He said, all you need to do is agree to a £30 fine. So I said, can I have that in writing, Judge? And he said, no, you and I know you can't have that in writing. He said, but you've got my word, hand on my heart. This is what the judge said to me. Mark Holm was there, he'll tell you. He said, you got my word, hand on my heart. So we get into court. The prosecution stood up to give evidence, and the judge turned around and said, okay, yeah, sit down. And the prosecution said something, and the judge turned around and said to him, this is my court. I'll make the decisions in this court. So will you please sit down to the prosecution? The prosecution were like that. They didn't know what was going on. But the judge just trying to get it through in their system. So there's me, which I know now I should never have accepted that. I should have fought it all the way. But I've done it thinking, keep me out of jail today. Because I was on a 2-year suspended sentence. And the judge before that, he turned around and said, you come up in front of this court, you're going to jail, Reginald, Mr. Austin, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
I think
I was going to jail that day, but anyway.
You were playing the long game. You were playing the long game.
Yes, I accepted the £30 and he did stick to his word. The 2-year suspended sentence disappeared. All my fines disappeared. So he stuck to his word and I was happy with that at the time. But when I thought about it, I should never have agreed to that. I should have fought it all the way.
So, like today, are you still hounded by the council or are you pretty much left alone now?
I'm pretty much left alone. I get every 2 years, I think it is, or every year, a computer prints off a page and they send it out to you. I get that, but I just ignore it now. And I don't get no. I used to get
bailiffs.
But yeah, not yet. Bailiffs, I've had that. They don't bother with me no more neither. But I used to get county court summonses to go to county court for non-payment of fines. See, so instead of what I started to do is send the paperwork, my affidavit and that, to the council, and I don't even get the summonses no more because I put it to them that they're fraudulent. They're printed out by the council. They hide a room in the courts. They said everything you do is all fraudulent. I've got no obligation to any of it. If you can prove I've got an obligation to do anything what you asked me to do, and you show me that obligation created with 2 signatures, the terms and conditions, I'll accept it and comply and remain honourable. And that's all you have to do. You just got to remain honourable. You don't refuse. What you do is you prove, proof of claim. You're making a claim.
You're withholding until you're satisfied. You're satisfied.
He who makes a claim as a burden of proof. And another thing as well, what I've got onto with the courts, every man is accused of something as a right to face their accuser.
Yeah.
So what I do, I demand to face my accuser, and it's usually Liverpool City Council. So who's called me Liverpool Mr. City Council? Who can I question called Mr. or Mrs.? There's no such thing. No. Or if the DVLA, there's no one called DVLA. There's nobody called Merseyside Police. So I just put the question. If I've got a right to, if you're accusing me of something, making a claim against me, I got a right to face my accuser. I want to face and speak to Mr. or Mrs. Merseyside County Council, Merseyside Police or whatever. And since I've been doing that, they seem to have backed off, because they know I know how it works. And if somebody, only a man or woman can make a claim or write on paper with a pen, only a man or woman can do that. So if Liverpool City Council is accusing me of something, I've got a right to face them and question them on the accusations. Who's called Mr. and Mrs. Mr. or Mrs. County Council or whatever? There's no such person. So, and that's what I think's doing it for me. That's why they're backing off now. Because I just asked, if you claim something against me, I've got a right to face my accuser. I want to speak to Mr. Merseyside Police. No such person, mate, is there? And I think they're getting a gist of it now, and they're backing off. So they don't bother me no more. They don't bother me at all. But what they do, they use my lads and they use my family to get at me because they don't know what I know. And some of my lads do, and they won't sign nothing, and they say I don't consent, but they just get railroaded because they don't know the system, how it works as well as I do. They don't even bother coming near me, really, now, no more. But my YouTube channel, where I've got Police by Consent, I don't know if you've seen it.
I will leave the link to your YouTube channel in the video description so everyone can go and look.
Yeah. Well, I had my first channel I had years ago when Facebook first started. I got a YouTube channel called Police by Consent up. And YouTube took it down because what I was doing, I was going around the court cases for people as a Mackenzie friend, and my own court cases, and I was video recording them.
So you was doing a little bit like what Banana Man does now.
Yeah. Well, listen to this, right? I was video recording the court case. So when somebody reported me on YouTube took me videos down, and I challenged it, but he just ignored me. And where was it? Return of thought goes, yeah, I had this YouTube channel. I had thousands of subscribers, and I was recording court cases. So I get a letter off the Attorney General office, yeah, accusing me of a contempt of court because I recorded in the court. So I wrote back to them. This is by email. I wrote back to them. I'm saying, okay, Mr. Attorney General, as I understand it, it's not a court under common law jurisdiction in this country. It's administration of a trust. And if you can prove that it's a court, and I'll accept contempt of court, I'll hold my hands up. But I don't believe it's a court. I believe it's administration of a trust, which is all deceit and fraud. Anyway, I got a letter back, an email back off the, off the Attorney General saying that they decided not to prosecute me for recording in court. So basically, I've got evidence there, right, that they've admitted by doing that and not prosecuting me, because if they could have prosecuted me for recording in a court, like they said in the letter, I'd have been prosecuted, mate. And because I challenged the claim of it being a court and not an administration of the trust, which is fraud and deceit what they're doing, and I put it in the letter to him, what he sent to the email, and he sent back, we've looked at what you said and we've decided not to prosecute you. So what does that say to you? Says I'm right, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's good. That is good.
So when I realised that, like, if the Attorney General understands what I'm saying is correct and decided not. Because I think, if you're recording in a court case and they will prosecute you, won't they? They're not going to let you off, are they? So anyway, my YouTube channel got closed down, so I had to make another one. The Attorney General accepted that I hadn't done nothing basically wrong. I didn't contempt of court because they couldn't prove it was a court when I could prove otherwise. It's not a court. They're enforcing legislation on people who don't consent. And the only reason they don't consent is because of their lack of knowledge. But ignorance of the law is no defence. And that's one of their maxims, isn't it? So, I just go by what the letter of the law. And nobody, these people who are supposed to uphold the law, they don't even know what the law is. They haven't got a clue the difference between legal and lawful. They don't realise, right? When they say that's illegal, they don't realise what makes something illegal. Do you know what makes something illegal?
It's just an act. It's just an act, isn't it?
No,
because somebody says it's illegal doesn't make it.
Do you know what makes something illegal?
No, go on.
It's a breach of a contract. It's illegal to breach a contract. So without a contract, nothing is illegal unless you've agreed to it in a contract and you breach that contract. That what you've done becomes illegal because it's a breach of a contract. So without that contract, it's not illegal. So basically, we've got no contract to say that we can't do 70 mile an hour in a 40 zone. That's just a presumption. It's a sign. It's not illegally binding. People assume that because, like the police, they say, well, you've got a license, you've agreed to it. Well, where did it say when I applied for the license that if I speed and do 70 and it's a contract? It's not. There's nothing in the terms and conditions when you apply for a license saying that you have to abide by the Road Traffic Act, is there? Or by DVLA policy. It doesn't say that on a V5 when you sign it, does it? I've read through them all. It doesn't.
No.
So if you've agreed to something in a contract and you violate that or you breach it, that's what is illegal. That's what makes something illegal. A breach of a contract is what creates something illegal. So without a contract, it's not illegal, is it? Because anything legal is a legal binding contract. That's what legal means. It means an agreement signed and agreed between two or more
business,
parties.
Isn't it? It's business.
Yeah, it's all commercial, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an agreement between two or more parties. And for that agreement to be binding, it had to be fully informed of terms and conditions of what you're agreeing to. And it needs at least 2 signatures of who you're agreeing it with. And there's none in existence. I just ask for it. I just say, okay, yeah, show me the agreements what created the obligation you claim I have. And I'll comply. I'll remain honourable, your honour. That's why they all keep calling themselves your honour. They have to remind themselves to be honourable because not one of them are. They're all, because these judges must know what they're doing. They must know the law, mustn't they? And what they're doing is incorrect. So
100%, yeah, they must do.
That's what I put to them. You see, it's like that. When they come to find my son, they had a warrant out for his arrest, right? The first thing they done when they knocked on the window, they banging on the window. I went to the window and said, "Yeah, what do you want? Is Gary here?" And I said, "No." So we're arguing for about half an hour, and then they said they got a battering ram. They're going to bash my door down, which will be about the 4th time they've done it. So they got the battering ram, and what I didn't know, they had an inspector hiding around the corner out of sight. They brought an inspector because in law, in their procedure, right, they have it's got to be signed off, agreed to, right, to force entry, and an inspector or above has to sign that off and authorise it, right? So they brought him with them, hiding behind the corner. So if they said, well, we're going to smash your door down. I said, what lawful right you got to do that? We're going to use Section 17. I said, well, I know Section 17. I said, it's either got to be in danger to life, or whoever is wanted, you've got to know that they're in here, and you've just asked me, is Gary there? So you don't know he's here, and he's not here. I'm telling you, he's not here. So if you use that, I'll sue you. So basically, they all left and went away in the end. So I'm shouting after them, and I'm shouting, I thought you were going to smash me door in. And they don't like me because I'm bright, you know, and they know I'm bright. But why bring an inspector and I around the corner? If you watch the video where I'm saying to him, you should know better. I said, these clowns here haven't got a clue, but you're an inspector. You should know better and what they're doing and breaking the law. You know what I mean? So they all toppled off in the end. They all jumped in the van and buggered off.
Well, with your permission, if it's okay, I might use some clips of your video to make a video. Obviously, I'll send traffic to your channel as well because it's the right thing to do. But no, brilliant. Listen, I've really, really enjoyed chatting with you or listening to you, to be fair. We need more people like you, though, because now is the time where there's such a thirst for taking back our own power that it's great to be able to have people like you on the show to be able to say that
people need to lose the fear. I can understand, you know, because, you know, they frighten me sometimes because I know what they're going to do, even though they, you know, even if you put it to them and you challenge what they're doing is correct and lawful, and they still do it. It's like that copper on the video. If you watch me videos, I said to him, you really believe that you can enforce legislation to somebody who doesn't consent, don't you? And he said, yeah. And they really do believe that. I said, mate, you need to understand, right? We're governed and policed by consent, and that means explicit consent. You've got to agree to it with your signature and whoever you're agreeing to with the full terms and conditions. There's no such paperwork with all the legislation in with your signature and whoever wrote that. And that's another thing, you know. I try to find out who writes legislation because they're liable for the harm and loss caused by legislation. Nobody writes nobody puts the name to it, so it's got no authority whatsoever unless somebody signs it off. But you know what they do? Do you know who I've been told, right, who writes legislation? The legislative team. That's all they tell me. I said, when I want to know, somebody must get a piece of paper and a pen and write that fucking legislation on, sorry for the language, write that legislation on a paper and sign and agree to it, to authorize it. So show me the paperwork and I'll agree to it. You know, but it needs my signature and whoever's wrote that legislation. But nobody's liable for the legislation. Somebody should be liable for legislation because how much harm and loss does that legislation cause?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I've got a video coming out on this about the fact that the government okayed to cut all the benefits, knowing that it's going to kill loads and loads of pensioners, is tantamount to murder. It's premeditated because they know what the outcome's going to be, but they're doing it anyway. But listen, I promise to have you back on again because I love talking legal and lawful, and you've clearly got so much knowledge.
Can I just mention before we go, just quickly, right? It was about my insurance, right? When I got after that ban and I got insured, my insurance premium went up from £700-800 to £3,400. Which I thought, that's a lot, that. Why is it going up that much? Oh, just inflation and all that, I was told. So anyway, I paid the £3,400, got insured. A couple of weeks later, got a letter saying that they cancelled my insurance. I think the police had got onto them, you know, because I got pulled up on the end of our road and they found out who my insurance company was through my documents. So I think they've rang up the insurance company. The insurance company cancelled my insurance, right? So if I'm fair enough, I'll go somewhere else. So it started getting quotes. I guess how much my quotes were? £20,000.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
And that's because of the police phoning them up and saying something. They put me on a high risk insurance group, right? How can I be high risk with over 30 years, no claims? Continuous no claims, no accidents, one accident in 30 years. How can they put me on a high risk? How can they justify that? I was asking them. And you wouldn't listen. 19 and £20,000 insurance quotes I was getting. So that's when I decided. That's when I decided, right? Sent my license back, rescinded it. Sent my passport back, rescinded it. Sent everything, all the paperwork, rescinding everything. Take my consent, the obligation, any assumed obligation or consent away. Yeah, rebutted everything through affidavit, and now I'm completely out of the public and in the private. People don't realise, like, by claiming to be a member of the public, you're claiming to be a member of the state or a member of
Yeah.
the public is a legal term for an employee of the state or the government. You know that?
No, oh yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's for another podcast. Right.
Yeah.
Nice one. Look after yourselves. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Till next time. Bye
Thanks
for now.
again to get this information.
Cheers, mate. No, brilliant. It has to be done. Until next time, mate. All the best.
Thanks,
Speak
Chris.
soon. Bye,
Have a lovely
mate.
day,
Bye.
mate. Bye-bye.